Do you want early access? Do you want uncut reactions? If so, then check out our Patreon. Link in the description down below. I never thought we'd make it. I'm gonna be honest, I thought I would have died. I'm just joking. I'm just joking about it. But yeah. It's the final countdown. So we're here, finally, at the end of the road for Avatar: The Last Airbender. I really, in certain cases, I was just like, I'll probably like die of a heart attack or car accident or something like that, and y'all would finish it in your own spare time without me. I'm glad I'm able to be here and witness this with you all, and this is just, God, this show. I don't know what else to say at this point, because we've said pretty much all we can say. The fact that we're here at the end is just, it's kind of weird for me. Because I know we've finished shows before, but this is a show that we have started and stopped multiple times. And this is the definitive end for this specific show. Whereas My Hero is still going on. I'm not going to say much. All I'll just say is I want to thank every single one of you out there who has stuck with us through this. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for just basically tolerating us taking our sweet time with this, because, you know, it's kind of the name of the game.
Thank you to those who tolerated my opinions not entirely lining up with the community abroad on this show. And
also I want to thank Micah, in spite of his work schedule changing and everything. You know, him still gutting it out with us and finishing this show up with us. Can't appreciate that enough, man. Thank you. And let's just get into it. This is the end of the road for Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is Sozin's Comet Part 4, Avatar Aang. Here we go.
Come on out, Avatar! You can't hide in there!
Needs to pull a Naruto and come from underground right here.
I remember that.
Metal bend the rudder so it's jammed in a turning position.
God, I love the fact that she's a metal bender.
Have I ever mentioned how sweet it is that you invented metal bending?
You could stand to mention it more.
Uh-oh. Oh. Aww.
Do not drop best girl.
I don't think Boomerang is coming back, Tough.
How did that happen? Did Boomerang come back?
No, Suki did.
That's right.
Oh! They just knock open the Avatar state for him.
You're about to be in.
Well, you called down the Thunderwill there, Fire Lord Ozai, and hello, Boomy.
Hell yeah.
I feel the same way, boys.
Holy crap.
Oh. Compressed boulder just decimating it. smart.
Thank you, Ghidorah.
I think I'm the one who should be thanking you.
Yikes.
That's what she's been reduced to, man. I mean, you gotta think.
I'm not gonna end it like this.
Oh, he's gonna attack you again.
Power in the world. You are still weak. What did you do to me?
I took away your firebending. You can't use it to hurt or threaten anyone else ever again.
And the tides to extinguish the flame.
You should have seen yourself. It was amazing. You were all like, and the fire alarm was all like.
I took his bending away.
Wow, who taught you that?
A giant lion turtle.
You have the craziest adventures when you disappear. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to offend you, Phoenix King of getting his butt whooped. Yeah.
Not bad.
Or how about King of the guys who don't win?
Suki,
Leave the
it's
nicknames
okay.
to us, honey.
It's okay. It's okay. Just
I'd be mad if I was a villain and I got beat by the heroes and they fed me lines that fucking lame.
You need
Yeah.
help with that?
It'd be like, oh, you could have at least said something cool after you kicked my ass.
You're
Yeah.
okay. So does this mean you don't hate me anymore?
I think it means I actually kind of like you.
aw, that's sweet.
Don't ever break up with me again.
Hey, the Duke. The Swamp Benders.
Dad! Dad!
I am the proudest father in the world.
Hmm.
And your mother would be proud too.
So how's it feel to be back in uniform again?
It feels great.
Careful, Suki. Ty Lee's pretending to be a Kyoshi warrior again.
It's okay. She's one of us now. We're gonna be best friends forever.
The world's so different now.
And it's gonna be even more different. where we build it together. Please, the real hero is the Avatar. This war is finally over. 100 years of fighting has left the world scarred and divided. But with the Avatar's help, we can get it back on the right path.
All hail Fire Lord Zuko!
For the first time in a long time, one finally worthy of wearing the crown.
Why are you really here?
Because you're going to tell me something. Where is my mother? Zuko, stop moving! I'm trying to capture the moment!
That's very thoughtful of you, Sokka. Wait, why did you give me Momo's ears?
Those are your hair loopies!
My belly's not that big anymore. I really trimmed down.
What?
I would have told her where she could shove it.
Oh, come on, dude.
I'm glad they at least touched on it, but like, if I were Aang, I wouldn't have been that good. It would have been like, nah, you had your chance. You done fucked it up.
Oh, come on, man, really?
Did you think love could bloom even on a battlefield? Yes,
It can.
but she doesn't. So
Damn.
I mean, well, it's like you said. It's like they really had to rush it. They should have had a whole other season. I mean,
yeah,
that was the original plan. I mean, they wanted to tell four, because the four elements, which I know people's just like, well, air doesn't exist anymore. How can you like air does exist? It's called the Last Airbender. Can be pretty much him going back and like exploring more about the air nomad temples and stuff like that. And hell, there's other stuff that you can tell in a season that doesn't have to be relative to the element in which you're talking about. I know the predominant thing and the theme of every season is, you have to be in the place that you're in. It's just in different seasons they visited the Fire Nation, they visited the Air Nomads, they visited the Earth Kingdom.
The thing to me, the natural response is like, if the spirit world exists and balance is important, like more airbenders would be born. I mean, because if it's just genetics, then it's like, well, if it's just genetics, then what's the point of like all these connections to the spirit world and stuff? So in my mind, at some point, the natural order would have to be restored and more airbenders would be born.
Well, okay, seeing as how like there's not really much of a chance of us watching Korra, I will say this. Aang and Katara, they get hitched.
Oh, yeah.
And they have kids.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, they have one kid in particular. His name is Tenzin.
Mm-hmm.
He's voiced by J.K. Simmons. Probably one of my favorite characters of Korra. And he has several kids, and all of them are airbenders. And actually it gets to the point where Tenzin's wife is pregnant, and then Katara is there, and she's able to, she feels the belly. She's like, I feel a strong presence. It feels as though you have another bender in your, you have another bender. And then all of a sudden, the wife is just like, another one? Good Lord, I'm already dealing with all of these. You're saying I got to deal with another one now too? But that's like the first episode. That's like,
yeah. Well, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me with balance being important and like the spirit world and all that stuff. The airbenders would just somehow go extinct and none would be born. Like, I feel like you would see people being born with airbending in other places. I mean, just because.
Probably.
If it's just something that's just genetics, that's honestly kind of lame considering everything we've seen with this.
I think that it genetically it can be passed down. However, I think if you treat it like how the Force effectively should have been treated, there are those who are more Force sensitive, and effectively it's the same thing here. There are people who are more elementally sensitive. Sure. I mean, that's how I would do it anyway. But I can't really speak much on that because if there's people out there who are watching this who have not seen Korra, I don't want to give too much away. But
I just feel like it's like they're completely wasted points if it's just genes, and like then there's really no point in there being an avatar that bridges the human world and the spirit world and like tries to maintain balance. I mean, it's like, you know,
Well, yeah, but
because we're talking about like a spiritual connection to like elemental forces, not hair color.
yes.
You know.
Yeah, this is it's something a lot deep. Well, the spirit world, it becomes a lot more prominent in Korra. It's just there's how they do it. I don't like mostly what they do with it, but it is what it is. But yeah, the spirit world. That's one thing I think they could have explored more in this series. I really wish they would have explored more in. If anything, that could have been like more expanded on if they had the fourth book. But again, it's just where we are right now.
I also wish they could have explored like the lion turtle thing more, because that just came out of nowhere. I mean, it's cool, but
Yeah. I feel like overall, like the lore was more expansive feeling for the first 2 books for sure. And then the 3rd book, while epic and still a good conclusion, really felt compacted and rushed compared to the rest of the series. There was also stuff they were doing at points that I was kind of like, these almost feel like fillery episodes when you should be getting the fuck on things. Like, because if you know by that point that's your last season and you're having to wrap it up, like you should probably start getting to some points a little sooner than they did. I don't know. Overall, for like being constricted to 3 seasons, like despite not planning to be constricted to 3 seasons, is still a pretty damn good show.
oh
like,
yeah,
for
it's
sure.
very good.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't call it perfect, like
No,
people
no.
seem to, but like,
Well, you know how people are, dude. People love to
definitely
overblow things.
yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about like I do like the idea of like Ozai's arrogance kind of leading to his downfall. I mean, that's always, you know, I think appropriate for like big evil guys, but I'm not sure how I feel about like Aang getting slammed into a pointed rock and that's what connects him to the avatar state, because he consciously gave it up because he wasn't willing to let go of his feelings for Katara.
Yeah, that's sort of a game. That's sort of a break right there in the logical loop.
So that kind of bothers me. It kind of feels like a gimme. Like I appreciate, you know, Ozai, you know, where he's like taunting him and really arrogant and stuff, and then he, you know, slams him into the rock as he's like, you know, in the Earth hamster ball thing. But yeah, to me, it's like, wait, so, you know, all of his training with Patik, it was like he could have just like, you know, they could have just poked him with a stick in the right spot and, you know, gotten him there instead of like, because it was a really conscious effort. Like, he gave up a lot.
Keep in mind, at the end of the 2nd season, he did give everything up and he did enter the Avatar state. But when Azula hit him with the lightning in the exact right place, that's what fucked up his spine and thus knocked his chakra completely
he
out
actually
of sync.
did like give up the connection to it. We thought when he
Well,
was
yeah,
training
because he
with
did.
him.
Okay, so because he did say,
And
"I'm
then-
sorry,"
but he
Katara,
did go
went
into
in
the
his little
Avatar
hut.
state
Yeah.
for a second right before she hit him with
Right.
the lightning bolt. So it was at that point shown that, like, even though he didn't give up his connection, he still found a way to do it. So
Now-
I guess like the lightning did turn off some kind of key connection. I'm assuming just the physical force there jostled it back into place or whatever.
That's one thing that can be. I think,
I agree too. I think it would have been better if it was expanded and they could have done something more along the lines of like, oh, he has his connection to Katara because he's kind of in love with her, but then she decides to be like she was, and like, oh, we're in the middle of a war. It's no time to think about stuff like that. And so he starts to like turn his feelings off somewhat, and that allows him to bring it back at the end when he realizes, is like, you know what? Screw her. Like, I need to do this for everybody else.
And I think after it was all said and done, if they had like a more full resolution episode, maybe her and Aang could actually have, you know, hash it out.
Yeah.
And that would have been a much more
I think it would
emotionally
be better
impactful
if, like,
thing.
stuff was starting to get resolved, and then they could be like, you know, he could at least express some sort of like, that was kind of shitty that we shared a meaningful kiss and everything, and then, you know, you just suddenly were like, go fuck yourself, and her be like, I'm sorry, it was really stressful, rather than just be like, oh, everything's dandy and good and we're kissing now, like,
Yeah.
it's over. It's like,
I do wish they could have developed like the lion turtle energy thing more,
That's-
because that just sort of came out of left field. Because like how was anyone supposed to understand he could do that?
Deus Ex Machina, my friend. That's always my problem
It
with
seemed like
certain
a random
things.
explanation
Yeah.
for.
Because
It seemed like they set it up randomly just so they could set up the way that he beat him without.
Well, because you didn't want to
Without
kill him,
killing
him.
and that was a big.
seemed
It was
just-
a big moral struggle for him,
Yeah.
and then it was just a gimme. Like, oh, by
Pretty
the way, he
much.
can just take people's bending away. So,
which is kind of
I understand because
That
it
definitely been a more epic.
because
like,
they lost an entire
that he had to come
seasons,
to the
so they didn't really have the time to really explain it.
which again, that whole rigmarole about not getting the full other season is still still a little bit of a niche with a lot of people
Yeah.
who really love this show. Don't get me wrong, I love this show. I give it an easy 9 out of 10.
Oh,
Like, in my opinion, it's not perfect, but in terms of like the points of perfection that this show has, in terms of the animation, the characters, I mean, it does some better than most out there.
Like,
I really do appreciate that for their last 2 episodes they went all the fuck out with their animation.
Oh, yeah,
which I thought was
absolutely.
It's like it looked like they saved some up. We're like, we got to make these last 2 episodes really
Yeah.
kick you in the dick. Like,
And they did.
animation, like that was definitely appreciated.
I mean, like Sokka laying there with a busted leg and tossed about to fall, and he has no weapons, and you're like, the sad music starts playing. It's like they a bunch of firebenders line up and take aim on him, and you're like, whoa,
I mean, and also the space sword, him losing his space sword, and just everyone having their own struggles in their own way. I mean, Zuko and Azula having their fight, and then
I think that was honestly my more favorite fight. Honestly, I mean,
thematically, it is
Yeah.
probably my favorite fight.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the the ultimate power struggle between Ozai and Aang. I mean, and Aang finally going in and conquering the Avatar state, but still, I feel the merit between Azula and Zuko is a lot more daunting.
It is.
because of the personal history.
It's personal because we see Azula a lot because we didn't really see. We don't get to see a lot of Ozai at all.
You barely see him at all in the first season.
Because we see the
or anything in the
fallout
second season.
of what the Fire Nation's done, but as far as Ozai, it's we don't really get a lot of him. And I know he's a bad guy, and I don't like him, and I want to see him lose. But it just Ozai doesn't feel like personally a bad guy.
Well,
He just is
I think a parable that we can take from it is sort of like Moff Gideon from Mandalorian, because how Moff Gideon is, he is sort of an Ozai character. However, we have a history with him in multiple ways, because not only does he want certain things, he also is willing to do anything he can to achieve it. And
right. I just I would have liked.
a little more personal.
Yeah, maybe
connection with
a
Ozai.
flashback showing him doing bad Ozai stuff. I mean, of course we saw. I think
Some more
we saw a
build-up
lot
to
of that.
really making you want to see him beat.
Well, because we
essentially.
saw it through Zuko's perspective mostly, which I mean I dislike it for
That's-
that, but we didn't see it through the world's perspective.
Well, and also another thing too, that one thing that really makes a great villain, Ozai, I would say is a pretty good villain. I'd say he's easily a B tier villain, because voiced by Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Great, great use of his powers. Great, just maniacal thoughts and megalomaniac. But what makes
Well, I mean,
a
you
truly
can even
great
look at
villain?
Dragon Ball Z, and see that he's definitely not as fleshed out of a villain as could have been. Dragon Ball Z is one of the most simple concepts, for
Yeah.
just doing big evil villain
Yeah.
versus good guys.
Well,
and
yeah.
just
But
really giving you villains that you're just oh man,
What makes a great
but
villain
it's
though
the time
is
they put into it.
Well, yeah, the time you put into the villain, and that's why Frieza made such a great villain. I think Frieza's probably my favorite villain out of all of them. I love Cell, and I like Majin Buu, but Frieza, and what you
can't-
see Frieza do.
I love Frieza for nostalgia, but Cell's probably on the same level as a villain for me.
And that's fair.
So,
And-
both of them are just ridiculously fleshed out. They won't fucking die. You spend a ridiculously large amount of time hearing them talk shit, do horrible things to people, just seeing how evil they are, and wanting to see their defeat finally. That it's just a huge fucking payoff when they finally go down.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because Ozai, he's not he's not the monster in a horror movie, so you're not going to
No.
save him and keep him in the shadows until the end. And they played up the fact that Aang was like, he's still a human being. I want to be able to resolve this without just being a killer. So if that's important, then I think we need to kind of know him personally too, a little bit.
Actually humanize him to the audience a
Well,
little bit.
Because like when he didn't do it, like there were audible groans, like "Come on, dude!" Like you had him, like
yeah,
you know.
I'd say probably a parable I saw that was actually like worked very well was Oliver Trask from X-Men: Days of Future Past, because whenever you see his logic into why he is doing what he's doing, in your mind, if you met this guy and you saw how passionate he was about it would make sense to you why he would do it.
Well, I mean,
whereas Ozai here, the only reason why he's doing it is because the previous Fire Lord, it was what the previous Fire Lord wanted, not what he wanted.
Because I mean,
and this is just basically all like, obviously, we're not shitting on the show because
No.
they didn't do this. We're just saying like, if they had the time,
yeah.
these are things we would have liked to have seen.
Well, because
Yes.
Azula got a lot of development too, because we finally got to see that last little slip where she just,
Yeah, she's
like a
way better of
nosedive.
a villain
Yeah.
than Ozai because of the time that we got to get
she
to
went
know
over
her
the
and
ledge, just slid down into madness. Whereas,
She had moments where we didn't completely hate her and
yeah.
stuff.
I mean, by the end of it, I felt bad for her. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, me too.
she's still a terrible person, but like, I mean,
kind of sucks that
She's
there's
still a
like no
kid.
redemption
She's
for
only-
her pretty much
yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
Like,
She's only like 13 or 14. She's
Yeah.
still a kid. I mean,
and I mean, it's like really like with the Ozai thing, it's like at that point, like there was nothing redeeming about him. Aang was the only one that wasn't rooting for him to just go down. I mean,
pretty much.
it's like there were audible groans from the audience. It's like nobody's invested in Aang's struggle really at that point. I felt like,
well,
I mean, we ought to sit there and say like, yeah, he was the bigger person. He didn't kill him, but it's like this was
I think a pretty good move, honestly, would have been to somehow, at some point, swap out Azula for Ozai as the main villain. Like, she was already basically the main antagonist throughout the
entirety of the second season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
since season 2.
that would have been pretty
Like,
interesting. That
if she somehow betrayed, Ozai, like, decided, like, he wasn't
he was weak
up to the task or
yeah.
whatever, and she was a better fit.
Sure.
We saw more of like her descent into madness and like her taking over and deciding to destroy everything and them having to stop her instead.
Yeah.
I think we would all been a lot more invested in the whole deal. And like maybe
I
he
can
can
see
find
that.
a way to save her so she can be a better person and not be fucking insane. Maybe they can fix her snapped brain somehow,
maybe.
But
I mean,
Well, then,
with Ozai, it was just kind of, he was like he almost is like the god character that appears at the end of Final Fantasy. Like, you fought this one antagonist the whole fucking time, and you finally beat his 5th form, and then I was like, oh, by the way, you have to kill God too. Like,
holy shit!
and everybody's just like, okay, well, that's kind of epic, but like, all right.
Why?
Like, I was more excited about killing, what's his name?
Yeah,
Kuja or whatever.
yeah, killing. Yeah,
Necron
you got me
or
all excited to
whatever.
kill Senior Shithead. Now you're asking me to go kill God. It's like I've been fighting this guy the whole time. I've been having fun. Now you want me to? Okay, all right, God, let's tussle.
It's like, I think it's like a better setup when you have stuff more like Super Metroid or something like that, where it's like Ridley's like your obvious like Azula style antagonists, and then you got Mother Brain looming in the background. Mother Brain's still fucking like something that is behind all this and stuff.
Well, same thing in Mega Man with Vile and
Your objective is always
Vile
to-
and Sigma.
Yeah, your objective is kind of always to kill Mother Brain. Ridley's like that secondary antagonist, but it doesn't like put him in your face like more than it does Mother Brain by the end of it, if that makes sense.
It is kind of a bummer though that like they're gonna do a live action series and it's like, oh man, like they're gonna be able to let things breathe and really develop things, and then it's like, oh, just kidding, the showrunners are out now, so I guess not.
What are you gonna
Because
do, man?
I feel like, I mean, because I really enjoyed this, but there are some things that I just really did need to be developed more, and it's kind of sad that they don't get to do that. I mean,
Yeah,
because it's a really cool world.
Definitely very much
And,
more
like-
disappointed now over the thing with the Netflix series than I was when I initially read about it.
I mean, like with like Zuko's mom, like that's a cliffhanger in of itself.
Yeah.
Like
That's
Yeah, like
You
that's
s-
kind of fucked.
you see
It's
the
like, where's
interesting
my
thing
mom?
about that.
Nothing.
The interesting thing about that is they did release a book about it, and a lot of actually, okay. I watched this one already, guys. The Nostalgia Critic did like the top 11 best Avatar episodes. He also did the top 11 worst Avatar episodes, which
I'm pretty sure I watched that one with you because I remember him railing on the Great Divide episode, I think.
It probably. And all in all, though, he said, like, he actually had Dante Bosco, who plays Zuko, appear in it, and they actually go into a bookstore and kind of have like a fight in a bookstore, and then all of a sudden he pulls the thing out of and he holds it up to like defend himself. He's like, "Oh, hey, look, it's the story of Zuko going to find his mom. It's actually a really interesting read. You should try it out sometime." But forget this. How about you? Just like getting back into the fight. But I'm like, come on, really wish they would have done something. Like if the end of this, wasn't the kissing scene or anything like that, and the end of it was literally Aang and Zuko and all of them flying out to this one island that was like a place of exile or something like that, and then Zuko walks up and he finds his mother. I mean, that would be to me. I'd like that ending.
I think it should be Azula in a cell, and Zuko opens the door and is like, "There's someone you need to talk to," and then he brings the mom in after they found her. I think that would have been a great ending.
That would have been a great one too, yeah.
Because their mom would be the key to Azula redeeming herself. I mean, I would feel like.
I think so. I think pulling her back from the depths.
Also, like, another thing, I don't know if this is a bad thing or not about this show, but it definitely starts you off with, like, there's an avatar. He can use all 4 elements, and you're like, that's an interesting concept for sure. He's going to be a really cool character. I personally feel like almost every single side character ended up being a more interesting character overall than Aang.
That's actually one thing a lot of people have said.
They knocked it out of the park with Zuko's story, with Sokka's stories, like side stories and stuff, like Iroh for sure, like Toph for sure, like is an awesome character, and it's just like all of these awesome characters should be building your main character, your avatar, up to be like, the definite, like, oh hell yeah, like so awesome, like by the end. And like some of his last Avatar state stuff was kind of cool. I was a little disappointed he just kind of stayed in an orb of elements for like the last bit of the fight. I feel like there's so much more they could have done with that concept there, but I mean, again, it's probably budget restrictions and time restrictions and stuff on that, but
maybe
like he just didn't come off to me as like even close to like a top most interesting character overall. He was just kind of a plot device that was necessary for the main story for all of these awesome side stories to take place around. Maybe that was the point, like
maybe.
I don't know. It's just a little weird to me, like that. That's kind of how it ends up coming off. Like, I mean, I'm not angry to have all these really good stories with these other characters and stuff, but it just seems a little weird that you put that there as like your main plot, main character, quote unquote, main villain, and it feels so just light compared to everything else you were given with everybody else. Going back to this series, it's just, I remembered like a lot of stuff, and I always remember that Aang was never my favorite character. I knew, Iroh was always my favorite. I think if you're, Iroh is most people's favorite.
and I know that there's also, a lot of people love Toph, a lot of people love Sokka, a lot of people like Zuko, especially after his redemption. But there's, I know the tier list that you plan to do and everything on this. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what you have to say. But damn, so much potential in this show, and a lot of it is cultivated, but some of it is wasted, and it aches. It makes your friggin' heart ache to see the stuff that's wasted.
Well, it does. I mean, because this is like a kid that had to come to the realization that his entire people were dead.
That's
so I mean, he dealt with like some crazy heavy things, and I don't know if they just didn't devote enough time to it or what, but it kind of, I feel like it shouldn't be the case that so many people have a favorite character other than Aang. I mean, when it's his story.
I think I could feel them devoting the time to it in the first 2 seasons, but by the time that they realized they were rushed and they just wanted to have you care about the side characters more, like they just ended up doing so much more with them in such a short time, then that he kind of fell to the wayside, like on his part. Because like it was definitely there early on. I cared about him more probably in the first 2 seasons than like I did by the end of it. Like by the end of it, I'm just like, I like everybody else so much more than Aang. Like, so I don't know. Like he still had some cool parts like in the 3rd season. Like his struggle with like insomnia, not being able to sleep for the nightmares and stuff was a cool episode.
Mm-hmm.
And his trying to figure out whether or not he's going to kill Ozai, you know, and if there's another way. Like definitely could have been developed more, but it's like the finishing up of Zuko's story, I felt like was just way more interesting. Yeah, just way more of a dead-on bullseye than like Aang's, pretty much.
And that's fair. Well, it
really almost felt like it was more like Zuko's story by the end of it than it was Aang's, like for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people have felt that way about the show. In which, I mean, when you see the character arc that they both go on, who makes the biggest change? Zuko. Yeah. And it's a more logical change as well because of who he has around, or who he has with him the entire time, and the life that he came from. It's like, oh, well, damn. He's finally starting to see that, you know, he made a mistake. He needs to start rectifying. Yeah. But
so if I was going to give this a rating overall, I would think, it's going to piss people off, I would give this an 8.5 out of 10.
And that's fine.
And I feel like if it had a 3rd season, it would probably easily reach 9.5 to 10. Like,
yeah.
And I hope eventually, like, the creators can actually get that shot to really make the definitive version of it somehow, like they were talking about they wanted to with the Netflix version that Netflix wasn't going to let them do, so they dropped out. You know, I hope at some point they get that opportunity somehow.
Hopefully.
Because I would really like to see that. And I don't know. I might watch some Korra and just see what I think of it. Like, you never know. You should always kind of form your own opinion on something rather than just listen to everybody else. So I'll probably see what I think. And I'm not totally disinterested in checking out what they came up with that happens after this. So.
All right. What about you, Micah? Final thoughts on the series?
Oh, I mean, it was really good. I mean, like we talked about stuff that, you know, felt rushed or thought could be done differently, but I mean, I can see why people love it. I mean, it's super cool.
Mm.
I don't know.
I could definitely see too if I watched this when it first came out, like as a kid.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, or as a teenager at least, probably at the time. Like,
I
would probably have a nostalgia thing for it. My score for it would probably be higher too. Like,
and I mean, it's definitely worth like just. With the world they built, like, I mean, there should be 5 series, like, following the lives of different avatars. I mean, like,
I think so, too.
I mean, to have, like, a Roku series where it ends with him, you know, dying, looking up at his former best friend, like, you know, as, like, his home burns to the ground, like, this volcano's erupting, like, that's pretty heavy. Like, you talk about a dark series, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
I think it'd actually stand to have a really good video game set in that universe somehow. But
they've tried so many times, but the problem is they can never find a good dev studio to take the... Yeah, every time.
If I was going to pick someone to give that particular style of video game adaptation, I think I would probably... Honestly, I would probably prefer Platinum.
Platinum?
Have it, yeah.
Platinum could do good.
I think that their combat, like, style, like, that's their strength, is their combat choreography, their action, like, you know, and, you know, fighting mechanics and stuff. All that stuff is always, like, S tier with them. And I think with the way that Avatar works with the martial arts combined in the elemental flinging, like, Platinum could pull off some really awesome ideas with it, like, to give you, like, a big array of moves that goes from simple water bolts and water punches, or, you know, to like
big
freaking
epic
tidal wave
moves.
stuff. Or
Yeah.
if you're playing as an avatar, like combining it together, like water tornado.
I feel like even like level design would play into that
Flaming Rock
because
Blast.
different people would have different capacity to like navigate levels, kind of like in like Jet Force Gemini, where they all had different environments they
Yeah,
excelled
yeah.
That'd be interesting too.
in. You know, because like a firebender, like in the desert, if they can like manage heat, then presumably they wouldn't get overheated or something, so they wouldn't need like the Goron's tunic to survive, you know,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much you can do with it if you could give it to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
They can put the creativity behind it.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Avatar The Last Airbender, our reaction series to it is finally done. So thank you all again for tuning in. Thank you for being patient with us, and let us know what you all think in the comments down below. I mean, we'd love to hear what you all have to say. I know some of you probably be unhappy with, us, being critical of it, but that's just part of the game. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but I make no apologies.
I mean,
neither should they.
It's a great series. Like
Yes.
I don't dislike it at all. I mean,
It's just you got to take off your nostalgia goggles and judge it for what it is, and understand that people are not going to think exactly like you every single time. That's not fair.
I mean, I love the original trilogy of Star Wars. There are things I bash about it. Just
Oh,
'cause,
yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah,
some things were not at all
isn't
planned
that right?
out.
Isn't
and,
that right? You scruffy looking nerve herder.
I mean, just like, oof.
It's like, is this one of the greatest things I've ever seen? Not in my personal opinion. Am I unhappy that I watched it? Not even close.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very happy that I actually finally watched it.
Well, again, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, and I guess until next time, signing off. I'm Nate,
Like it.
I'm Nick.
and we'll see you later, everyone. Peace.